Alright, so this is my all aluminum truck camper that I built from scratch in my garage, and I have fully built out the interior over the past 3 to 4 months, and today I'm going to show you guys everything about the build, from the exterior, the framing, the full interior build. I truly have loved seeing this thing come together, and I'm excited to share it with you guys. I will put timestamps down below in the description, and I hope you guys enjoy. Alright, so for the design phase, I used Autodesk Fusion 360 to fully draw out the camper. I went with an aluminum square tube framework with aluminum sheet metal fastened to the framework. Now, for the size of the camper, I tried to create a large enough camper, but not too large. Basically a happy medium for a camper that sits above the frame rails. It extends past the tailgate area, and I can set up my full interior in the front to back or side to side orientation. I'm really happy with the size of this, as it fits everything that I need to basically have a cabin on wheels. So one of the first things I did after designing the camper is I built a prototype. Now this prototype was really useful as it led me to figure out what thickness of square tube to use, the thickness of sheet metal, and to test out the Sikaflex 252 in conjunction with the rivets to secure the sheet metal to the framing. Now, I was really impressed with this prototype, and it led me to select the following materials. So for the paneling, I went with .090 thick aluminum sheet metal, and I was able to draw each panel out in AutoCAD, and I made cut files that I was able to send to a local manufacturer to laser cut out all 16 panels. These cut files really helped streamline the process, and I was able to include the array of rivets throughout each panel. For the aluminum square tube, I did end up going with a .065 thick 1 inch by 1 inch aluminum square tube. Now I did have a few areas where I had a thicker 1 by 2 inch with a .125 wall square tube, and I'd use that in a few more critical areas. So for all of this square tube manufacturing, I worked with a local steel supplier and gave them basically a 100 plus piece cut list that they cut all of the aluminum square tube to size. So I did have to machine the aluminum angle myself, and then I just basically got after it. So I spent the better part of a week straight basically in the garage working with the aluminum square tube, cutting angle brackets, and using rivets to secure the whole framework together. It really started to take shape, and each time I installed a piece of square tube, it gave the structure more rigidity and felt better overall. I did have a few times where I would frame in the windows and verify dimensions, and really it was just a fun process to see it all come together. So to secure the panels to the framework, I did use Sikaflex 252 and rivets, and a ton of rivets. I think overall this whole project I used over 1,200 rivets total. So now that I had the whole camper constructed, I used the help of 4 men to help me load this camper onto the truck. Now, I did this fairly quick, and I was off on a big road trip. It was time to break in the camper. Obviously, the camper is not done, but I was really excited to get out and use it. So I hit the road and went from California to Texas and had a really nice time camping in it. Even though it was bare, I had a somewhat temporary setup on the inside, and I was able to comfortably sleep in it, and I actually brought my dog on the road trip. We had a really nice time, and first impressions, I was really happy with a hard-sided, fixed wall camper. After putting so much time and effort into it, it was really just enjoyable to get out and use the camper. So on the road trip, I did end up coating the whole camper in Flex Seal. This was a funny story of how I ended up using Flex Seal, but Long story short of it is, it may not be the perfect solution, but for me, it works. And having a nice waterproof coating on the whole camper, including the roof, is a win in my book. So starting with the interior of the camper, I wanted to create a very solid subfloor. This was something that can be insulated and very strong, something that I can secure interior framing to. Since this is a bed rail height and above camper, I really needed to build a separate interior from the shell. So this is the start of all of that. I used 2x2 wood framing, a Craig pocket hole jig, I insulated the floor, and then I used plywood to seal it all in. Jumping right into more of the interior build, I started to get after it on laying out some wires. Don't worry, I did cover all of the wires with Tessa tape, which is a really good, strong wire holder. Now, once I placed the wires, I started to get into the furring strips, which is what I would use to attach my interior wall paneling, and also create a void that I could fill with insulation. So for the insulation, I used a 10mm thick, high-density foam, and this is an aluminum foil-lined and adhesive back product. It is typically used in the car industry for heat and sound insulation, and I found it to be a perfect use for this scenario. One more thing to note about the electrical, I did use my 7-pin trailer connector to power all of the running lights I have in the camper, and to me that was a really nice way to get all of the running lights, the turn signals, everything wired into the camper and properly set up. So I did use a cedar tongue and groove for the interior ceiling and front wall portion of the camper. I found it to be a very nice product, and I secured it with Loctite PL3X, which is a really nice construction adhesive, and I did use brad nails to set it in place. So in the ceiling, I did manage to get some recessed 12-volt lights, and I love how they work. Alright, so now we're getting into more of the fun part of the build, in my opinion. This really is creating a workstation, kitchen, and functional portion that I could sit in my chair, use as a desk, use as a kitchen. I can get work done on my laptop remotely, and it really just makes this small space something that I can get out and use. So I built a reclaimed barnwood countertop and got it all functional, and then I really just started using it. I started to cook meals in it, I started to work remotely. This was basically the first point where the camper had a function and a purpose, and I was so thrilled to start heading to the coast, cook meals for YouTube, work remotely, and just enjoy it. Obviously, I had camped in it before, which is a huge plus, but being able to now cook inside, use the workstation, I was just thrilled. Alright, so the next category is basically an all-out push to work on the interior. I got a ton of stuff done, from 2x2 framing. I installed a vinyl sheet floor on top of the plywood subfloor. I started to dial in how the couch and bed would be set up. I installed a beadboard wall on the driver's side. I installed a subway tile wall on the passenger side. I got a curtain up. I started to work on a slat bed that would extend out, and I was really just going ham at this point. I really wanted the interior to start to function and flow and have a use. So I'm not breaking this category down as far, but basically it was a mad dash to complete the interior. I really wanted to use it and to start to see everything come together. So as you can see, I did have a glaze coat epoxy. I started to cut down a foam mattress from Amazon to size, and really the place was just coming together. In the corner, I installed a 12-volt sink, which uses a 5-gallon water dispenser. I really like that thing, and I currently have it just draining to the ground. I just love how simple and effective this water system is. So I do have a Bluetti power pack that's powering my fuse panel that disperses to the 12-volt lighting, the vent fan, this Iceco Fridge. I do have a Scepter water tank with a quick disconnect barb fitting, and that is what supplies water to my rechargeable 12-volt sink above. I find this to be a very simple water system. I do strap these jerry cans down when I'm driving. Over here I do have a trash can from Target, and having a trash can in the camper is wonderful. Here you can see a shot of the rechargeable sink. Now I find this to be perfect. It's very cost effective. I drain it outside and I use biodegradable soap, so I'm not too worried about that. So for the cushion covers, I went on Etsy and I found a highly reviewed seamstress, and basically they had custom size cushion covers. So I went with these. They shipped in about 2 to 3 weeks. They came in, I got them all set up, and I really love how they came out. So one of the cool features of these cushion covers is on the back side, it's a anti-slip, somewhat of a grippy material. There is a zipper on the back, which is really nice. And here you can see the 6-inch foam that I have from Amazon. This was a relatively cost-effective bed setup, and I just cut it to size. And then I did go with double piping. So there's a piping on the top and piping on the bottom, and I think that gives it a nice look. So the way the bed works is I have the main section, the second section. Underneath I have slats that extend out. That's basically the whole bed. This back piece is extra. I thought it would be nice for sitting up, but if I really need to, I can move it out of the way. So in conclusion, I basically have created a all aluminum exterior shell with a fully built out interior out of wood and other materials, and I'm really just happy with it. This truck camper is everything that I dreamed of. I really wanted a hard-sided camper where I could sleep in, I could cook in, I can function and work, and I would be out of the elements no matter what is coming down. And it's just something that lives on my truck. To be able to create something that's lightweight, relatively cost-effective, and a fun learning process has been truly a wonderful experience. I'm really happy with how the interior has come together, and I'm just happy to be sharing it with you guys. If you have any questions, leave them down in the comments below. I'll be happy to answer. Hope you guys have a wonderful day.